Cold water, crushing pressure, absolute darkness. This is where our drone begins its descent towards the Bismarck. We're not just looking at a shipwreck. We're approaching a battlefield frozen in time, a steel mausoleum holding secrets that have haunted the world for decades. The initial sonar readings paint a ghostly outline. The Bismarck lies upright on the seabed, a colossal shape emerging from the gloom. But the sonar can't reveal the details, the fine print of its demise. That's the drone's job. As the drone plunges deeper, its powerful lights begin to cut through the inky blackness. The first glimpses are breathtaking, almost surreal. The bow looms into view, a towering wall of steel encrusted with the ghostly white of marine snow. It's a sobering sight, this once mighty war machine now resting in eternal silence. But even in these first moments, something feels off. This isn't just a ship resting peacefully on the ocean floor. This is a vessel that met a violent end, and the evidence is etched into every inch of its hull. The drone's cameras begin their meticulous work, scanning the steel plate by steel plate. And what they reveal is a tapestry of destruction, a mosaic of twisted metal and gaping wounds that challenges the accepted narrative of Bismarck's sinking. Take a look at the bow. Notice the massive deformation just above the waterline. That's not consistent with a gentle sinking. That's the unmistakable signature of a massive impact, something that tore into the steel with immense force. Was this caused by a torpedo, a shell from a battleship, or something else entirely? Moving along the hull, we see further evidence of the brutal battle that raged here. Numerous shell impacts, each one a crater in the thick armor plating. The sheer number of these hits is staggering. It's a testament to the relentless barrage unleashed by the Royal Navy. But it's not just the quantity of damage that's surprising, it's the nature of it. Some of these impacts are clean, precise penetrations, indicating armor-piercing shells doing their deadly work. But others are more ragged. The steel is torn and splayed outward, suggesting internal explosions. What caused these? Were they the result of secondary explosions within the ship, as ammunition stores detonated under the intense heat and pressure? Or were they the deliberate handiwork of the Bismarck's crew, setting scuttling charges to prevent their ship from falling into enemy hands? As the drone navigates further, it approaches the midsection of the ship, the heart of the Bismarck's fighting power. Here, the damage is even more pronounced. The massive gun turrets, once the pride of the German Navy, are twisted and contorted, their barrels silenced forever. One turret lies completely detached from the ship, resting upside down on the seabed, a grim monument to the battle's ferocity. And then there are the torpedo hits. The scans reveal gaping holes in the Bismarck's side, where British torpedoes slammed into the hull, unleashing their devastating power. But even here, the story isn't as straightforward as it seems. Some of the holes are relatively clean, suggesting a direct hit. But others are surrounded by buckled and twisted metal, as if the force of the explosion rippled through the surrounding structure. What's truly perplexing is the pattern of these torpedo hits. They seem concentrated in certain areas of the ship, particularly along the stern. This raises a crucial question. Were these torpedoes aimed specifically at critical points in the Bismarck's design, perhaps targeting the rudder or the propulsion systems? Or was there something else at play, something that made the stern particularly vulnerable to attack? But the most unsettling discoveries lie in the stern section itself. As you may know, the stern broke off from the main hull as the Bismarck sank, and it now rests some distance away. The drone's exploration of this area reveals a scene of utter devastation. The steel is twisted and torn beyond recognition. Huge sections of the hull are missing entirely, leaving gaping voids that expose the ship's internal structure. The drone's lights illuminate a chaotic jumble of pipes, wires, and mangled machinery. It's a stark reminder of the sheer violence that occurred here. What's particularly striking is the way the metal is deformed. In some areas, it's bent inward, as if crushed by an external force. But in other areas, it's splayed outward, as if blasted from within. This suggests a complex interplay of forces, both internal and external, that contributed to the stern's catastrophic failure. Could this be evidence of scuttling charges detonating within the stern, tearing it apart from the inside out? Or was this simply the result of the immense pressure as the stern plunged to the ocean floor, combined with the damage already inflicted by torpedoes and shell fire? The answer, it seems, is not a simple one. The drone's cameras are recording a crime scene, but the evidence is ambiguous, open to interpretation. The Bismarck's wounds tell a story of relentless attack, of devastating explosions, and of structural failure. But they also hint at the possibility of deliberate destruction, of a crew determined to deny their ship to the enemy, even in death. The images coming back from the drone are more than just pictures of a shipwreck. They are a collection of contradictions, a series of question marks etched in steel. They challenge us to rethink what we know about the Bismarck's final hours, to question the accepted narrative, and to grapple with the complex and often unsettling truth of war. This isn't just a historical relic, it's a puzzle, and the pieces are scattered across the ocean floor. And as our drone continues its exploration, we're only just beginning to understand the true scope of the mystery. Steel coffin or scuttled prize? Millimeter-scale scans reopen the debate on Bismarck's demise. The fate of the Bismarck is a maritime whodunit, a mystery played out on the grandest scale. For decades, historians and naval experts have wrestled with a central question. Was the Bismarck sent to the bottom by the relentless firepower of the Royal Navy, or did her own crew, facing inevitable defeat, scuttle her, denying the enemy the ultimate prize? The official British narrative paints a picture of overwhelming force, a crippled battleship, pounded into submission, a testament to the Royal Navy's unwavering resolve and superior firepower. Shell after shell, torpedo after torpedo, reducing a floating fortress to a sinking hulk. The victory they maintain was decisive and unequivocal. But then there's the German perspective, passed down through generations of survivors and fiercely defended to this day. A narrative of honor and sacrifice. Faced with impossible odds, their comrades chose to send the Bismarck to the depths on their own terms, setting demolition charges, opening seacocks, flooding compartments, ensuring that the mighty battleship would never fall into enemy hands. A final act of defiance, a self-inflicted wound to preserve dignity and deny the Royal Navy complete victory. Both stories are compelling. Both are steeped in the fog of war, colored by national pride and the emotional weight of loss. And perhaps buried within each narrative lies a kernel of truth. But reconciling these two accounts, teasing apart the intertwined threads of destruction, has proven to be an enduring challenge. This is where the wreck itself becomes the ultimate arbiter, a silent witness to the final, desperate hours of the Bismarck's life. And it's here in the cold, crushing depths of the Atlantic that our next-generation underwater drone brings unprecedented clarity to this decades-old debate. Previous expeditions, while groundbreaking in their time, offered only glimpses of the wreck's condition. Photographic snapshots, sonar scans, and limited ROV footage provided valuable clues, but the resolution was often insufficient to draw definitive conclusions. The devil, as they say, is in the details. And the Bismarck's details are etched in steel, obscured by layers of sediment, and hidden in the perpetual darkness of the abyss. Now, armed with millimeter-scale scanning technology, our drone can meticulously map every inch of the Bismarck's hull, revealing subtle nuances and damage signatures that were previously invisible. We're talking about pinpoint accuracy, capturing details finer than a human hair. This is forensic science on an epic scale, a virtual autopsy of a steel behemoth. As the drone sweeps along the hull, its cameras record a tapestry of destruction, ruptures in the plating, some gaping holes punched inward with violent force, others bent outward like the petals of a dying flower. The direction of these bends is crucial. Metal forced inward is a telltale sign of external impact. Shell fire, torpedoes, the immense pressure of imploding compartments. But metal forced outward? That suggests something else entirely. An internal explosion, the detonation of scuttling charges, or the catastrophic failure of internal structures under unbearable strain. The stern section, severed from the main hull, offers a particularly compelling and contradictory narrative. The new scans reveal a chaotic jumble of twisted metal, deformations that defy easy explanation. Some areas are caved inward, as if crushed by an external blow, but nearby, sections of steel are splayed outward, as if propelled by an internal force. Was this the result of pressure equalization as the stern flooded and collapsed? Or could it be evidence of deliberate explosions set by the German crew as part of their scuttling operation? The engineers poring over this footage are divided, their interpretations as fractured as the steel itself. Think of reading the metal as reading a language written in violence. The angle of a fracture, the curl of a plate, the jagged edges of torn rivets, each detail tells a story. Drone surveys reveal what naval architects call petaling, where metal bends outward around a puncture, like the petals of a flower. On the Bismarck, we see both kinds of petaling, some pointing inward, the unmistakable signature of shell or torpedo penetration. Others, however, point outward, suggesting internal forces. Could both sets of evidence be accurate? Could the Bismarck have been simultaneously battered into submission by the British fleet and deliberately finished off by her own crew's desperate act of scuttling? This unsettling possibility is what makes the Bismarck's story so enduringly haunting. Survivors recount hearing the chilling orders. "Open the seacocks! Set the charges! Abandon ship!" They also vividly recall the relentless, deafening barrage of shells and the terrifying roar of explosions ripping through the ship above and around them. The truth, it seems, may lie in a grim synergy, a convergence of destruction. The Royal Navy inflicted grievous wounds, crippling the Bismarck and sealing her fate. But the German crew, facing the inevitable, may have hastened the end, ensuring that the mighty battleship slipped beneath the waves swiftly and on their own terms, denying the enemy the satisfaction of capturing her. Yet, even with this new, high-resolution data, the wreck refuses to offer a definitive answer, to declare one version of events as absolute truth. Every scan, every millimeter mapped, deepens the mystery rather than resolving it. The bow and midsection seem to tell a tale of overwhelming external force, while the stern whispers a different story, a narrative of deliberate self-destruction. Historians call it a paradox. Engineers call it conflicting evidence. But for the drone operators staring at the live, high-resolution feed thousands of meters below, it feels as though the ship is caught in a silent, eternal argument with itself. A steel confession spoken in two voices, neither willing to be silenced, and amidst all the contradictions, one particular area of the wreck stands out. A single, concentrated region of overlapping damage, exhibiting both inward and outward deformations, both battle-scarred and strangely precise. It's as if this single point holds the key to unlocking the Bismarck's secrets, daring anyone to draw a final, definitive conclusion. It is this single region of damage that becomes the fulcrum upon which the entire debate balances, and where the data takes an even more chilling turn. Chilling pattern of collapse, experts fear the wreck reveals. Fatal flaws and unforeseen truths. As the underwater drone began its intricate dance around the Bismarck's skeletal remains, the initial impression of random chaos gradually gave way to something far more unsettling, a pattern. Scars that had once seemed like isolated acts of violence now formed a brutal narrative, etched in steel and spanning the length of the ship. Instead of scattered impacts, the drone's high-definition scans revealed a disturbing alignment. Shell holes, torpedo breaches, and areas of buckling armor appeared to cluster along specific frames and structural supports within the Bismarck. It was as if a chain reaction of destruction had rippled through the ship, each point of impact weakening the whole. Naval architects call it progressive collapse, a term that sends shivers down the spines of those who design and build the behemoths of the sea. It describes a scenario where one critical failure triggers a cascade of others, leading to a catastrophic loss of structural integrity. The Bismarck, once hailed as an unsinkable fortress, now showed the chilling hallmarks of this deadly process. The stern section, lying severed and twisted on the seabed, offered some of the most compelling and frightening evidence. The drone's millimeter-scale mapping revealed stress fractures radiating outwards from points of impact, far beyond what a single torpedo strike would normally produce. It seemed as if the initial damage had weakened the entire structure, allowing the immense weight of the flooding stern to wrench it apart. Engineers examining the drone footage noted a disturbing phenomenon. Areas where the steel was not just bent inwards by external impacts, but also buckled outwards from within. Was this simply the result of water pressure equalizing as compartments flooded and imploded? Or did it suggest a more sinister possibility that internal explosions, perhaps from scuttling charges or cascading system failures, had contributed to the stern's catastrophic separation? The implications were deeply troubling. If the Bismarck had succumbed to progressive collapse, it meant that the ship's structural integrity was far more vulnerable than anyone had previously imagined. And if the Bismarck, with its reputation as the pinnacle of naval engineering, could be brought down by such a mechanism, what did it say about the rest of the battleship fleet from that era? For decades, naval historians had focused on the duel between the Bismarck and the Royal Navy, framing the ship's demise as a contest of firepower and will. The British claimed victory through relentless bombardment, while German survivors insisted that they had scuttled their own ship to prevent capture. But the drone's chilling revelations suggested a more complex and less comforting narrative. The Bismarck may not have been sunk solely by enemy guns or by her own crew, but by a fatal combination of both. External damage weakening the ship's structure, triggering progressive flooding, and ultimately leading to a catastrophic collapse. The question then becomes, how much did the crew know? Was there a decision to hasten the inevitable destruction as flooding spread and the situation became hopeless? Or was this the unforeseen result of decisions made under fire? These are questions historians and engineers will need to re-examine. What's especially unsettling is the thought that no commanding officer could have fully grasped the danger in time, and no damage control team could have effectively counteracted it once the cascade began. If the Bismarck's final moments were dictated not by strategy or valor, but by the inexorable laws of physics, then her sinking becomes less a glorious clash of nations and more a grim lesson in the limits of even the most advanced technology. As experts pored over the drone's images, a sense of unease began to creep in. They realized that their textbooks, their models, their assumptions about battleship design might be incomplete, even flawed. A ship that was once considered a symbol of naval invincibility had become a chilling case study in structural vulnerability. Perhaps the Bismarck was doomed the moment her rudder was crippled, not because of the immediate tactical disadvantage, but because the damage had already set in motion the forces that would eventually tear her apart. The scuttling charges, if they were indeed detonated, may have simply accelerated a process that was already unstoppable. The drone's findings raised uncomfortable questions about the nature of naval warfare itself. If even the mightiest battleships could succumb to hidden weaknesses and catastrophic cascading failures, then how much of victory and defeat depended on engineering, and how much on chance? But the most chilling implication of all was this: if the Bismarck could be undone by unseen physics, then what other hidden vulnerabilities lurked within the complex machinery of modern warfare? What seemingly invincible systems were just one critical failure away from catastrophic collapse? The wreck of the Bismarck had become more than just a historical artifact. It was a grim warning from the depths, a reminder that even the most advanced technology is ultimately subject to the unforgiving laws of nature, and that the cost of ignoring those laws could be catastrophic.